Welcome to Our Takes, where we bring you the creative work and ideas of artists and innovators around the globe today and reflect upon the great masters that have come before us. Winston Churchill won the Nobel Prize for Literature. He was a great painter and writer in addition to being an amazing political leader. And he said, "Pessimists look for the difficulty in every opportunity, and optimists look for the opportunity in every difficulty." Well, creative people do just that. They find ways to transform challenges into great work that really moves our hearts and lifts our minds and our spirits. Nick Givechy is one of those artists. He is a person who spent time homeless and on the streets, and he has transformed that experience through his poetry, through his photography, through his performance. He brings you artistry in a creative world like no other. I'm proud and excited to introduce to you his work, his ideas here on Creatics. Enjoy his movie, enjoy this statement from Nick.
Hey guys, my name is Nick Givechy. I'm a writer, actor, filmmaker, general entertainer in Lawrence, Kansas. I'm coming to you live from this quarantine, so stick around. You're going to see some fantastic work being broadcast on the internet from the comfort of your own home, and you can just kind of sit there with your sweatpants or pajamas or no pants even, whatever you want to do. It's going to be a fantastic day. You can just kind of sit there and dig into our heads, I guess. You get to see what we do and what we produce. First of all, how this time has affected my creativity, which is, it's a really interesting concept because a lot of what's going on right now seems like society's falling apart, right? Like it's come to this point where we're so used to the world as it has always been. Like we're just so wired to work logically. We go to school, we get a job, we do certain things in a certain way so that we can maintain our livelihood, and that lends itself to a very logical approach to life. But a lot of things that are considered hobbies in that old world view kind of get laid off to the wayside because they're not considered lucrative. They're not considered, the phrase that gets tossed around is don't quit your day job, right? So what this has ended up being for me is almost like a societal reset. I mean, and that's not necessarily to say that that's what it should be for everybody, but very personally to me, this feels like the time that I've always wanted, that I've always craved, to not have that societal expectation to wake up and go to work and have to do what I have to do. It's almost like there's no judgment anymore, and that's what it feels like to me. I get to wake up in the morning, I get to come sit at this desk instead of going to some job just to work 8 hours and then come home exhausted and wonder when I'm ever going to have time to do the things that I want to do for the life that I've always dreamed of. I've gone through some tough times. I've gone through, over the period of the last 15 years, there have been 3 significant chunks and 1 transitional period of a couple weeks where I was living on the street. Helter Shelter is a testament to what it felt like to be dehumanized during that time. And I've held jobs. I've held positions of responsibility. I've been prior to the 3rd stint that I had in homelessness, I was a restaurant manager. So I had a job that paid me pretty well, and I had an apartment that was right near the water in Niagara Falls, New York. It did look like I had it made. But then a series of events unfolded, and the living situation that I was in fell apart. I lost my transportation, I lost my job, and without getting too much into detail about how all that happened, I ended up living on the street. And within the course of a week, how the world views you after you leave that position of comfort and that position of stability and having an income that would make you a contributing member to society, people just walk over you. And that's a very strange feeling. A lot of people that you see on the street have lived through that for years, and they've kind of forgotten their own humanity. But that stems from the fact that within days or weeks of being on the street, society kind of neglects their humanity as well. And so Helter Shelter is a piece based in what it feels like to pass over that threshold, to be in that position where I once was a productive member of society, and then days later nobody cares because I on the surface I look unshowered and unshaven, and I'm wearing the same clothes because I don't have all of my belongings with me. So I looked like I had nothing to offer the world at large. And now, please enjoy Helter Shelter and check out my treasury on Creatics for more.
He just wanted to be a real boy. But he had fallen from graces. Those subliminal safeties we once engraved on his bracelet as a minute-old baby. Handed off and then taken from him. Now he watches familiarity fall away as it breaks him into pieces. This timeless existence, spent scraping for make-believe peace out of the bottoms of foxholes of cardboard that line these no-vacancy streets as the ages pass by him, diverting their gaze from his eyes, as he helplessly falls to his knees and prays that they'll pay him attention, but they only believe that he preys on attention, so they leave him no feed and they whisper between themselves, "It must be so nice not to have to pay any bills. Earning tax-free donations from generous strangers. Fuck, I wish I had that freedom." See, he's just a seed in the wind to them. Some kind of allergenetic disease. How appalling it is that his kind just litters the streets, such an eyesore each season. See, the homeless are literally choking our streets with their presence, yet we, you and I, still consider them nothing to sneeze at. Tell me, how is that not a contradiction of terms? Tell me. How can a man that wears such similar flesh be considered a grease stain when no one's even slowing to grease them? Tell me, what difference is there whether he begs for a flask or some food when just fleeing the struggles of the fire for one single moment is a feast in itself? Just because you see me as a sinner does not mean I'm enjoying this hell. I mean, them. Just because you see them as sinners, see, they are not uneducated. They just know life differently. See, it may seem backwards to you that they know nothing about the history of the Wall Street crash, like the information you might store in your head, but how backwards is it that they know everything about the history of these street walls crashing while you and I were still comfortably snoring in bed? We have houses so full of emptiness, we have things we will never see, locked away in some shed, but they know more of what our humanity's worth when we won't even sweep out material possessions before we sweep their God-given lives off these storefronts. Instead, they are a person. I am a person, but not to you. To you, we're down to the wires with help, though. We may be programmed to replicate emotions like happiness. We tried to mimic you, mankind. Copycat how you delegate how hope should look to us. Please take a moment to penetrate this cold world we live in with a smile. Please take a moment to demonstrate how to make mimicry humankind's acts can resuscitate inhumankind's acts. Sense of humanity can act to alleviate inhuman acts. Humans act so inhumane. Error, humane error, humane error. Please change tape to side B, side B, side B, side B, side B. Is anyone beside me? Please change tape. Please change. Please change. Please change. Please change. Please change. Please. I just wanted to be a real boy.
I'm one of the few that's been able to come back from being homeless. Like, there are a lot of people who become like in a very like in a very Shawshank Redemption mentality. I was one of the few that wasn't institutionalized by homelessness. A lot of people are treated one way until they believe it, and once they believe it, they start acting that way, and once they start acting that way, that just becomes their life. And you guys are starting to, like, we're all starting to feel that feeling of institutionalization. Right now we're going mad in quarantine. But if that goes on long enough, that fear of going back out into the world and going back to the way things were becomes almost implausible. So with that being said, homelessness kind of mirrors that same idea, where you go mad after a while, but if you're not able to transition back to your old life, your normal life, then it feels very it feels like that's the new normal. You just become this shell of a human. You become this dehumanized being that, in robotic terms, has to pass a Turing test. People talk to you as if you're artificial intelligence at best. And if you can uphold that image of not... if you can uphold that image of being close to human, then they'll smile at you and talk to you for a little bit, but will never fully accept you back. I was fortunate enough to regain my humanity. I was fortunate enough that there were a few breaks in that narrative where I could go out and I had a place to go shower. Suddenly, for like one day, I was offered that scenario where I could go and shower, and then I was able to walk into a place and use people skills and talk to a manager of a hotel and actually get a job at the front desk. But that's a very rare scenario where you can back up and regain any semblance of normalcy. So my personal definition of success, based on my history, it used to be financial, because that's the story that just gets told to us, right? The more money you have, the more things you have, the more status symbols that you can flaunt for the people watching, that's success. And that's kind of the narrative that permeates through all of the celebrity lifestyles that we see in Hollywood. We see the big houses, we see the collection of cars, we see the high-end clothes with the really flashy price tags. But that's success of a world based in the baseline of that success is just a 9-to-5 job. When you're homeless, your priorities change. When you end up in a position that's rough, your priorities change. And at this point in my life, my definition of success is just being prolific with my arts, if that makes sense to you guys watching. I want to be able to put something out there that's, like I said, thought-provoking. I want to be able to reach you guys. And that's my definition of success. Being able to put forth those thoughts, putting posit theories, and be able to give you guys scenarios and entertaining stories where it gives you something to think about. It gives you something to pause and converse with each other about, so that it's not just an escape for 2 hours or 5 minutes or however long the piece of work is. I want to be able to be a voice that gives you your own voice. I want to be able to be the voice that makes you talk. Whether you agree with me or not, I want that philosophy to spark some kind of original idea. Because as humans, we need to be able to move forward. That's why we're in the position we're in. There are people in a position of power that didn't have the foresight to see what was coming. And that's what we need to do. We need to start these conversations. We need to be able to, as a whole, get over our superficial differences and talk about what's good for everyone as a global community, not just our tribes and our immediate microcosm that we feel this need to take care of.
And enjoy more of our featured creators' work on their Creatics profile and treasury. And check out the Fans Cast It contest, where you can help us decide who the permanent host for the Our Take show is going to be. We have 7 fantastic artists competing for this opportunity. So go and rate them and rank their auditions so that we can bring you the best host and guest hosts for your show.